Vosh, do you think you'll ever address slash disprove the Blue Anon election conspiracy theories? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. You mean like the vague, like the Twitter thread where people said that the votes went missing or something? What is there to disprove? There's no disproving a negative, right? And I've addressed it in the sense that I've said that it's coping. Kamala Harris lost. I suppose we should talk about that. Vosh is clearly not on TikTok, haha. You are correct, I'm not on TikTok. You mean like disprove or address a bunch of Zoomers who are saying stuff like, it doesn't make sense. How can they say voter turnout is up, but then the numbers are different? There's not really anything to engage with, in the same way that there's not really much to engage with, like, the random election fraud claims made after January 6th, where people retroactively were like, oh yeah, no, there was fraud, but like, you know, every single legal claim to that effect lost in court, you know? But they just like vaguely gesture at it. About Starlink being connected at counting at poll sites. I don't know what you mean. The Starlink doesn't control, you don't vote through Starlink, you vote at a polling booth. Let's go to the best source possible on the subject, Newsweek. Left-wing Starlink election conspiracy theory spreads online. An election listen, I want to be clear about this, okay? I expect conspiracism from the right because anti-empiricism is a component of fascism. This disgusts me. The more liberals cling on to this delusional belief that the election was stolen, the longer it'll take them to realize that Karl Marx was right about everything, and the reason they lost is because populism and a rejection of liberalism in the face of blah-de-blah-de-blah. I've talked about it before, okay? Like, we need a real awakening on this, and I don't think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get, like, I don't know, Josh Shapiro 2028, if we get a 2028. Left wing. Did Russia call in bomb threats? Sure. But that didn't prevent Kamala Harris from winning. Sure, lots of stuff happened, and lots more would have happened. But Kamala Harris lost fair and square. Left-wing conspiracy theorists allege that Starlink, a satellite constellation developed by Musk's SpaceX, designed to provide high-speed broadband, was connected to the voting machine supply chain. In 2020, right-wing conspiracy theories nearly upended the peaceful transfer. A 9-minute TikTok video by the... Oh, God. Okay, fine. Sure, fine. If we're going to talk about it, let's go to the source. Sure. Maybe this isn't the source, but it's being cited.
I really debated whether or not I was going to sit here and talk about this. I thought about it long and hard yesterday. I know that this is probably going to cause controversy or this is going to cause whatever. And to be quite honest with you, I'd much rather lose and people know than not do anything and sit on it, okay? This was brought to my attention yet.
No hate to this lady, by the way. It does make... Have you seen people on Twitter, like Gen Xers? Or sorry, not Gen Xers, millennials, who are saying stuff like, man, it kind of seems like millennials are the only generation that are relatively non-susceptible to propaganda from the internet, because Gen Xers and up are all like, every time they see an AI-generated Facebook post of like Jesus Christ returning in the form of a fish or something, they buy it. And then there are Gen Z and Gen Alpha who just have no computer literacy whatsoever because they grew up past the age where you had to know about computers to use computers. You know, I remember back when I was a kid, I had to learn how to use like a wineskin wrapper to play Terraria on my Mac, you know? Like, I understand this is a pretty low bar. I still don't know how to use the command prompt, but it scares me how it's like all text. I understand that I'm not like a computer expert by any means, but sometimes I get these little glimpses of the like information environment for people who are 17, 19, whatever. And it makes me wonder, man. Makes me wonder.
Yesterday from a friend of mine. His name is Mr. Wheezy, I'm sorry. Mr. Wheezy 100, and he's an engineer. I'm not going to get into information about him, okay? And he brought this to my attention because, you know, he also understands that, you know, I have my CCIE. You know, I've been a programmer and a networker for the past almost 11 years, you know, for networking and computers and all those, you know, all those other things. With that being said, it was brought to my attention, and I'm gonna, at the end of this video, make sure you watch the whole entire thing, please post it, boost it, because I'd rather lose and, you know, lose whatever I need to in order to get the information out than to not say anything.
Why are people allowed to make 9-minute TikToks? This is up. What happened to the damn point?
And sit on it, because I absolutely refuse to be like this. This is a give back to my dad and, you know, everything that he went through. Anyways, with that being said, he sent me a video letting me know that California and other swing states were able to use Starlink in order to tally up and to count ballot votes or voting ballots in their state.
They're not.
Okay?
That's not true.
There's a multitude of issues with that, and I'm going to explain to you why.
It's
and
not
I will
true.
explain to you.
Who'd you hear this from? Is this literally like the bar for information for Blue and on TikTok conspiracism? This is literally the same as the right-wing stuff, where some like wine mom in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia is like, I heard from my uncle that such and such. Like, what are you talking about? Truth nuke, liberal. Did you know that votes are tabulated using Starlink? What? We gotta accept what happened here.
In layman's terms, because you have to understand when it comes to computer programming jargon, you guys are not going to understand what the flying F I'm talking about, okay?
Okay.
So anything that you guys don't understand or you want more clarification from, please message me. I have no problems explaining it to you.
Okay.
With that being said, okay, you also have to understand that when it comes to Starlink, okay, Starlink is it's an IPv4, it's an IPv6. Basically what that means is that it's a specific satellite link-up system that sends signals to whatever it's hooked up to. Doesn't matter what it is, like a normal internet connection, right? With that being said, two things. Number one, why in the flying freaking flap, okay,
that was a straight up millennial moment, right? That was like a Gen X moment, actually. I can has cheeseburger moment, if you would. Well, what was it? Billy Need, what an absolute crustable of a day, Billy Needy Drinky. That was like a I grew up reading Harry Potter moment. I guess I don't know how old this lady is.
Voting ballot boxes or whatever, the places where you go to vote. Why were they connected to the internet? There is absolutely zero reasons as to why those systems were connected to the internet.
What evidence is there that they're connected to the internet? Also, like, what? Calling Starlink and IPv4 is like calling a computer Google. So it's something that I would do. 50 of my brain cells just killed themselves. Yeah, I guess. Does all of TikTok sound like this? In my experience, literally yes. Literally all of it. They have a very distinct... It just reminds me of going on Tumblr back in like 2009. You know?
Those machines have absolutely no problem tallying up votes like they have done since the beginning of time.
What?
Now, all of a sudden, he wants to come in here and talk about, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and help you because I know, there's a lot more people voting and it's going to be difficult, this and this and that. There's not a lot of people that you volunteer to help, blah, 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 blah. Let me help you to tally up the votes in order to be able to help you guys and make things easier for you. Oh.
Okay, wait, hold on. I just realized there's literally no reason for me to be watching this. This is all completely nonsensical. Okay, let's get past the boring stuff, which is the conspiracy, and let's get to the interesting stuff, which is my opinions on the world, okay? Look, conspiracism is common and always has been and always will be. People like thinking that when a tragedy has happened, and this election has been a tragedy, there is like a reason for it, and it's not just, cosmic fate. The problem is that there is a reason for this election result, but it's not the one that these people think. And it's very, very, very important because all of the signs that I'm getting right now, across the board, all of the signs that I'm getting from Democratic leadership, from their consultancy, from their like main runners, the signs I'm getting is that no one's going to learn their lesson from this. Bernie Sanders said it, and he was completely correct. Everyone has rejected it. The DNC chair rejected it. Nancy Pelosi rejected it. Chuck Schumer's just going to be minority leader. Like, all the same people are going to be in charge of the Dems even after failing us. Like, this is the problem that I have. Well, I have a lot of problems, actually. I am replete with problems. Am I using this correctly? Replete. Yes. Yes. Filled or well supplied with something. I'm filled with problems. Okay? The problem that I have with this is that the Democrats and their consultant class and the capital class directly benefit from this because the longer people delusionally believe that it was cosmic circumstance that Trump won, the longer Democrats get to not give a shit and never change their message. Okay? The Democrats don't really... We've said this many times before. The Democrats, the people on top, I don't mean the voters. The voters care a lot that Donald Trump just won, okay? But the people on top of the Democrats are largely ultra wealthy and only socially beholden to progressive principles. I promise you they don't really care that much. Now, a lot of this is them being delusional. A lot of wealthy people in Weimar Germany got axed, okay? There were a lot of wealthy people in, previous fascist regimes who didn't understand how serious the forces they were dealing with were. And I don't know if the Trump administration is going to like bring, Chuck Schumer out into a chopping block or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how far it's going to go. All I know is that the Democrats up on top do not care. They don't care. Do you see this? This came in like right after. The emails continue. Please let us explain. First and foremost, we want to acknowledge the fear, confusion, and sadness many of you are feeling at the moment. For others, you may be looking for something meaningful and important to channel your emotions towards. If that's you, then we're asking you to make a donation to the Democratic Party today. Here's why the request is so important. Apparently, the Kamala Harris campaign is actually in debt. They raised like $1 billion in direct donations, and somehow they're still paying off their debts, which I would love an audit on that. I know that running a campaign is expensive, but, you lost, so I'm a little bit less inclined to be charitable, I guess. It really makes me wonder how much of this just went to, like, I don't know, consultants making like $500,000 a year sitting around telling Kamala Harris that the best strategy moving forward would be for Hillary Clinton to personally knock on every Arab voter's door in Michigan and tell them that they're a retard. I don't know. I don't know where the money went, is all I'm saying. Was anything like untoward done with it? I don't know, but I am pretty mad at them, to be honest with you. So I'm going to assume I'm about to turn into a Brianna Joy Gray ass anti-dem holy shit. This is like the equivalent of hollowing, like the struggle, the Sisyphean task of a leftist is to not go hollow. Like the universe and entropy want you to care about nothing but hating Democrats. I know it's very, very tempting, and boy, do they deserve it. Okay, but you have to, you have to persevere. Okay, you are the chosen undead. You can't go hollow. All right, you've got work to do. You have to get sat on by a fat demon and then beat a lot of other fat demons, some of which are reskins, and then eventually kill God. You've got a long road ahead of you. You can't hollow. When life gets you down, you got to get back up at the nearest bonfire that you rested at. When life gives you lemons, you have to look at the item description to see what the lore is for, like, Dernvaus the Lemon Keeper, who 10,000 years ago fell here in a great battle, okay? What the is this guy on about? You wouldn't get it. You're getting lost in the... Listen, okay? Endure, all right? That's all I'm saying, okay? We're on that Lord of Frenzied Flame shit, okay? It's so important that Democratic... Listen, I'm not going to lie. In retrospect, I'm not saying this is true of the past. I'm saying this is true knowing what we know now if applied to the past, right? Like, I'm not criticizing the process. I'm talking about alt history here, basically. I think that America would be better positioned if every single Democrat in America who voted for Kamala Harris had instead sat and folded their arms and said, I want a Democratic Party that does better, Like, I'm totally okay with protest votes on the condition they don't cost you the election. But Kamala Harris already cost us the election by not winning. So if we're already condemned to defeat, the best case scenario is that as many people as possible are aware of why the Democrats lost. And stuff like this impedes that process. Like, we are fucking doomed if next election, all of the most powerful liberals are backed by all the most, like, aggressive donors, and all of them are screaming stuff to the effect of like, no, don't move to the left. Being pro-trans is what cost us the election. You need to run someone. No, Gavin Newsom is too far left. And by the way things are currently heading, I bet you that's going to happen. Gavin Newsom is going to run. Absolutely. And they're going to be like... Gavin Newsom's like kind of like a radical California guy. I don't know if, like, the way things are going, we are moving in the opposite direction that we need to go to. So all I'm suggesting here is that we need to learn from our mistakes. A sitting Democratic senator just admits it. Yep, yeah. This is one of the things we were going to go after, and I thought I'd wait for a later moment to go over it, but I guess we'll go over it now. Chris Murphy, everyone, from the man himself. Gavin Newsom has actual values. Harris is an empty show for the DNC. I don't really agree with that. I think that maybe Gavin Newsom's values are being the Joker. Maybe that's like his value. I'm not really sure. You know, like he is a lizard person. He's also just a bloodthirsty psychopath, which, you know, whatever. Whatever. Did you see this tweet from Democratic Senator Chris Murphy, who basically says that Bernie was right? No. Never even heard of the guy. That was a cataclysm. Electoral map wipeout. Senate Democrats practically ceiling, or Senate Democrat practical ceiling is now 52 seats. Republicans is 62. Time to rebuild the left. We are out of touch with the crisis of meaning / purpose fueling MAGA. We refuse to pick big fights. Our tent is too small. True. The left has never fully grappled with the wreckage of 50 years of neoliberalism, which has left legions of Americans adrift as local places are hollowed out, rapacious profit-seeking cannibalizes the common good, and unchecked new tech separates and isolates us. The things that mattered are disappearing. We spend half as much time with friends as a generation ago. That's man. Read number 6. I should permanently ban you. Are you a I'm literally reading through it, and are you kidding me? Bro, this live reading video that I'm watching is sick. Get to paragraph number 6 on the page. Make sure you read paragraph number 6. Like line 2 on, you can skip line 1 on paragraph 6, but line 2 onwards, very important. That's where the big twist happens. Jesus. Hard work no longer guarantees economic mobility. Institutions like churches are delegitimized. Well, in this respect, that's good, but you know, place-based identity evaporates as we all become global citizens. I agree that's bad. I think you can be a global citizen, but also care about the place you're in. I think one of the nicest things that you can do if you move to a new city is sit down and spend like a day learning about that city on like Google. I mean it, because you're going to learn all this like really cool stuff that you appreciate. Like you're going to walk by like a brick wall next to a property that seems like it does nothing and leads to nowhere. And then you'll read like, wait, that brick wall was like, I don't know, some famous guy tripped over it 100 years ago. And that's when he decided to clear out all the potholes in the street or something. And that's why this is called, like you learn something cool, you know? One thing that I learned recently is that Seattle has 2 different street grids that were basically drawn up and managed by 2 different wealthy patrons, one of which is like basically on the, what's it called, the meridian? No, like it's basically on the north-south, like, you know, like this, and the other one is on a slant like this going down, and the line that divides those two is called Yesler, and Yesler was the name of the guy who did the lower half. So that's the reason why that's where all of the streets bend like 30 degrees, because that's where the 2 wealthy patrons joined the city grids. And now every time that I go up and down that street, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, you can actually see, like, that's the reason why there's such a distinct, like, separation the whole city across right at this point. It's like, okay, you know, it's just like a cool thing. I think stuff like that is really nice, you know? And it is true that's evaporating. This is worse in the new world than in the old world, I guess, or at least in North America, because in America, like, a lot of these cities are dead. Whereas if you go to, like, I don't know, literally any city in the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, France, whatever, it'll be rich with history, you know? A lot of that is also because they care to preserve it, not just because stuff happened there. As someone who grew up in LA, it's pretty cool how when I went over to like Baltimore or New York or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, that right there, that's where like America happened. You know? I don't know. Anyway. The left skips past the way people are feeling alone, the way people are feeling alone, impotent, overwhelmed, and straight to uninspiring solutions. More roads, bulk drug purchasing that do little to actually upset the status quo of who has power and who doesn't. That's true. Most cities and towns have a local museum that try to preserve that stuff. Yeah, but like those suck. No one goes to museums. Oh, I do. No one cares. You're not real. I'm talking about preserving it in the fabric of the city. I do. Does racism explain part of the attraction of the right's nativism? Of course, but mass deportation is a terrible response to Americans' real sense they are helpless in the face of global forces like increased migration. The left largely ignores this pain. Okay, half yes, half no. This is an imagined pain. In America, migrants are not hurting your life. They're just not. They're not. It's not real. Even before we had this massive wave of migrancy, crime was at its highest in the early 90s. That was when you were most likely to walk outside your like apartment block and go to the street and there are like homeless people with a trash bin fire, like they're warming their hands around it or whatever. Like the period of time during which you were most likely to get shanked in the street for your wallet was 35 years ago and before the current wave of immigration. And it wasn't even like an ethnically or immigrant divided thing. It was, as it always is, like largely a poverty and inequality based thing, you know? Important to keep that in mind. It is an imagined pain. The underlying pain has been present for a long time. We don't listen enough, we tell people what's good for them. And when progressives like Bernie aggressively go after the elites that hold people down, they are shunned as dangerous populists. Why? Maybe because true economic populism is bad for our high income base. Oh my God, he admitted! Meanwhile, men tumble into a different kind of identity crisis as the patriarchy, society's primary organizing paradigm for centuries, rightly crashes. The right pushes an alluring dial back. The left says get over it. Again, a refusal to listen / offer responsible solutions. This guy's cooking, to be honest with you, you know? We cannot be afraid of fights, especially with the... It is true that one of the defining characteristics of Kamala Harris's campaign is never picking fights with anyone ever. Like, they muzzled Walz almost immediately as soon as the DNC consultants got their hands on him. And after that, it was like, nope. Like, that we're not pushing any fights, we're not pushing any envelopes, we are sticking to the way things are, and it's all going to be done with a smile. The right regularly picks fights with elites, Hollywood, higher education, etc. Democrats, e.g. the Harris campaign, are tepid in our fights with billionaires and corporations. This is true. Even if it's largely like an imagined fight, it's still very real, and it reflects in their rhetoric, yeah. Real economic populism should be our tentpole, but here's the thing. Then you need to let people into the tent who aren't 100% on board with us on every social and cultural issue. Okay, here's the issue. Here's the problem. This I disagree with, because now we're treading into like class reductionism. A fight against economic elites, a real economic populism, doesn't have to be done at the expense of advocating for social minorities. The idea that they do have to be done like at each other's expense is total bullshit. The idea of like we could beat back the elites, but only if we kowtow on abortion, trans rights, gay rights, whatever. I don't believe that for a second. I think that's total horseshit. In reality, if you give up on fighting for an issue, you lose on that issue. That's what it means to give up fighting on something. So if you don't fight for trans, gay, whatever, like you will lose on those issues and they will weaponize them against you. They called Kamala Harris a communist. They'll call Kamala Harris a pro-trans freak. No matter what she says. She didn't talk about trans people like at all the entire campaign cycle, and Republicans still dumped $100 million on advertising saying that she personally wants, like, you know, like 5 o'clock shadow trans women to molest your daughter in school bathrooms or something. Like it doesn't, the idea that if you give up this ground, you will open the tent up to more people, I think that's wrong. I think in reality, people are just disillusioned by liberalism, and that if you expose people to a working class coalition and the opportunities that it offers, people will drop their reactionary politics. That's literally what happened with Bernie. Bernie was unambiguously progressive on every social issue. No one doubts this. No one thought Bernie Sanders was giving up on any group of people. But he focused on the economic issues, and he won big in communities that Kamala Harris lost. He didn't have to, like, walk back on them. He just focused on what was important. And also, it wasn't like the Bernie Sanders campaign was intent on bringing about, like, a big tent where, like, reactionaries came in. Reactionaries didn't like Bernie. I mean, some did, I guess, because they were allured by the populism, but I don't think that was the driving mechanism of the campaign. It's all media environment, man. If you expose people to a media environment where they're told nonstop that trans people are creepy predators, they'll believe it. Or issues like guns and climate. I'm very sorry. I do not accept people into my coalition who don't believe in climate change. Are you fucking insane? You can't. The whole world believes in climate change except for America, like half of America. Like, no, I don't believe this. I don't. I reject this premise. I don't think that economic populism means giving up on, like, you can be wrong about everything as long as you're economically populist. I think if you do economic populism well, you can keep all these positions and people will still like you. Vosh, right, but when half the country has their own interpretation of what liberal, socialist, communist mean, how do you even discuss progress with them? You don't. Voters are idiots and you have to treat them like such. Give them a strong narrative about moving forward and work with that. You don't need to use any of these terms. How do you pick fights but also be less judgmental? Who wants to be less judgmental? The Harris campaign was too scared to judge anyone. The Democrats never judge anyone. They're massive pussies. Those are hard things for the left. A firm break with neoliberalism. Listen to poor and rural people, men in crisis. Don't decide for them. I don't like this again. Men in crisis? You even said by your own admission that a lot of them are just like wanting to rebuild the patriarchy to give themselves a sense of meaning. Women are also in crisis. Don't like, it's that not being as privileged as you used to be is not suffering. There are men's issues, but like you have to be careful with how you engage with this, because otherwise the people run wild with their narratives about how like being a man is harder than anything in the universe or something, because they're whiners. Pick fights, embrace populism, build a big tent, be less judgmental. This is where we're coming from, okay? I've gone from feeling positively about this to feeling negatively about this. I actually think this is kind of dumb now. What does that mean? The Democrats and the left broadly need to be more judgmental, more vindictive, more mean, more aggressive, more populist, stronger messaging. Kamala Harris refused to do anything interesting, refused to push any envelope, push on any issue, pick any fight. And as a consequence, what do you get? A spineless, do-nothing candidate no one believes in, who no one votes for. I think the men in crisis thing is sort of a virtue signal. I'm not sure he will actually do something. I don't know what you're talking about. This guy pushed the bipartisan border bill, so his own opinions are what's keeping him from being 100% right in this. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of getting, I'm getting like a red fash light opinion on this a little bit, where this is less about advancing the interests of the left and more like, what if we compromise on our social positions in the aim of having a like big tent like a bipartisan consensus that Hollywood elites are bad for the country or something. The way he talks about globalism, the harm like migrancy does to this country or something, it gives me the impression that like his understanding of economic populism is not my understanding of economic populism.